We are going to have a very important panel discussion on a very urgent topic. And before that, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our chairman, EPCH, Sri Rajkumar Malhotra ji, our past chairman, Sri Lekhraj Maheshwari ji, and we also have with us Sri K. Ramesh. He is the COA member of EPCH. We would also like to extend a very warm welcome to all our eminent panel who are present here with us, and of course all the participants. Before proceeding further, I'd like to request all of you to kindly switch off your mobile phones, or you may put them on silent or vibration mode. Thank you so much. So sustainability is an extremely urgent and a universal concern. It's about survival, and it has to be a way of life. The sooner we understand this, the sooner we change our mindset, the better it will be for the humanity. So the topic of discussion, as we all know, is sustainability, circularity, and net zero in handicraft sector. Let me very quickly and briefly introduce our panelists to you. Moderating this session will be Mr. Sandeep Sanan from Guni Enterprises. He brings to the table 3 decades of experience and expertise, out of which he spent 18 years with IKEA, responsible for their business in Europe, Asia and Africa. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Atul Badai with us. Namaskar. Country Head for United Nations Environment Programs India Office. We have Dr. Manish Pandey here, sitting next to me with us. He is Director and Head Project Analysis and Documentation Division, Quality Council of India, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. We would also like to welcome amongst us Mr. Iqbal Ahmed, General Manager, Foundation for MSME Clusters, with 20 years of experience of high-impact programming for the poor segment in India. Ms. Kanika Ahuja is here with us, highly decorated professional, President of Plastic School and Intercontinental Consortium promoting plastic upcycling technologies. She's also the founder of Lifafa, a social enterprise dedicated to creating fashion from waste. We have Dr. Ambika Sharma. Welcome. She's a development sector professional with over 2 decades of experience. She is the CEO of Association of Business Women in Commerce and Industry. And joining us also is Mr. Ram Agarwal, with a work experience of over 22 years. Mr. Agarwal is Senior Manager of Product and Integrity in Lee and Foam. So over to Sandeep ji. Please moderate the session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome all of you. It's a wonderful opportunity today to have a discussion around this topic, which is becoming very, very important for all of us. It's survival of our future generations, and also a thing which has to be solved immediately by us. And we have a very, very important panelist here, because expertise from different sections of the businesses, policy making and industries. And we look forward to understanding their viewpoints and their, let's say, tips on how we would prepare ourselves for this upcoming challenge. On the onset, I would maybe start with Atulji giving us an overview about circularity and what is your thought process on how do we look forward to the future and the trends.
Thank you, Sandeep, and I would like to thank Malhotra Saab and Rajesh for inviting me for this very, very important panel discussion. And you're right that sustainability, circularity, and net zero in handicraft sector is certainly emerging as a very important area of work. I'll just try to highlight 2 or 3 points because we have eminent panelists and from the industry also, and they'll have a very good perspective of how they are looking at it. But I just want to give the overall global concept and context of why we are talking of circularity in handicraft sector, and why is circularity emerging as a major area of work and thinking at the global and the national level also. We are all facing a triple planetary crisis, the crisis of climate change, the crisis of pollution, and the crisis of nature. Our focus over the last few decades has been that there is only a crisis of climate change, but increasingly last decade or so, the global community has started looking at the crisis of nature and the crisis of pollution. And all these three crises have a major impact on the handloom sector, the handicraft sector, and overall the textile sector. You are all experts in this area and would be knowing that the greenhouse gas emissions of the textile sector globally are much more than the combined GHG emissions of the aviation and shipping sector. So that we can imagine that the aviation sector is so huge and it's increasing. So aviation and shipping sector greenhouse gas emissions are less than the textile sector. And that's also because textile is a need of each and every of the 7 billion people who live on this planet. And as a result, certainly the impact is so huge. And another approach is that in the textile sector, and I'm trying to cover the textile and we come to handicrafts, which is an integral part of textile sector, is that whatever is being produced is not being recycled. So only I think 12% is recycled and only 1% of that is upcycled. So the remaining 88% gets into the waste stream, which is a huge amount. And the way this sector is growing, one really needs to look at how to not only recycle 12% to take it to 80% or 90%. Also, I think UNEP's approach has been, and this will hold true for the handicraft sector, UNEP's approach is to reduce by design. So, meaning while you are planning, for example, making handicrafts, how can you reduce by design so that the waste subsequently is not there too much in quantities that needs to be recycled. It also comes through the principle of sustainable consumption, where if we consume less, then our efforts to recycle or manage waste become less. But on the opposite side of the paradigm is we all want to consume more, especially in the textile sector, with the way the fashion industry is working, and it comes to the accessories and to the handicrafts, that every spring and every summer there is a new accessory line and new things coming up. While we're asking people to reduce by design or reduce their consumption, there is this whole global thing of going ahead with increasing your consumption. So it's a very difficult battle, and I think one of the big solutions is circular economy, where you bring in circularity approaches to see that you are able to recycle more, but one major emphasis should be to reduce by design the consumption so that you don't have bigger problem on your hands. Finally, I just want to highlight that handicrafts and handlooms traditionally in India have been very sustainable. But with the new practices that have come in, with the new materials that have come in, we have been moving away from sustainable production of handicrafts or handlooms or textiles. So if we can go back to some of our traditional methods of production in this sector, that would be a very good way of seeing that our waste efforts are minimized, and also that we are able to bring in some good circular approaches to address the problem that would be reduced by using some traditional methods. So UNEP is now working very closely with Ministry of Textiles. Of course, we are not looking at handicrafts in that as yet, but as a first step, we are coming up with a publication on sustainable practices in the traditional handloom sector. And we found that the traditional practices in the handloom sector over a period of time have been forgotten, or the skills have been lost, or new technologies have come in place which are more environmentally harmful. And if we can do a similar kind of an exercise in the handicraft sector, which is so much possible, I think that would be a very good way of looking at how we can bring in circular approaches and also bring in practices that have either been forgotten or not being used for a variety of reasons. I also wanted to highlight that circular economy is also one of the big themes of discussion during the G20. And India is very keen that there is a focus on circular economy in the final communique that comes out. And in the last meeting of the Environment Working Group that happened in Bangalore in February, there was a huge discussion on circular economy. Certainly the textile sector, including handlooms and handicrafts, is a matter of grave concern for the whole G20 community and the whole world. India is also seriously thinking of setting up a circular economy center of excellence, and that center of excellence, we are doing a feasibility study right now. Niti Aayog recently did also a study on 11 sectors, including textiles, where handicrafts are included. And my request to Malhotra Sahab would be to try to weave in the whole handicraft sector into all these discussions that are coming in, because we are representing the industry also, and industry is such an important stakeholder. I'll stop here and I'll come later on.
Yes. Brilliant inputs, Atul. And before I move on, I just wanted to ask you this handbook on sustainable practices. How can one get that?
So it's still being finalized, and we are hoping that middle of this year we should be able to bring it out. We are still looking for. We had the funds to do the whole research work, so we are looking at 100 traditional practices. Now we are trying to look for some funds to get it printed and published. I think for next middle of this year, once it comes, we'll share the version. Certainly.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for giving a very, very sharp but relevant overview. I would also request the audience to keep noting down the questions which you have, because we'll have time for question and answers, and I think it's important to address those things also. Kanika, would you like to add something to the overview with your practical experiences of actually working at the ground level? What has been your journey and what is your opinions about what is happening in the world now?
Sure, thank you, Sandeep. I think Atulji has covered very well the overall context. Coming from as a grassroots practitioner, we have been working in circular economy on the grassroots level since 20 years now as a non-profit. And Lifafa as a brand has been working since 2017 in taking the products that waste workers and artisans are making and exporting them to different parts of the world. On the ground, we see a lot of difference in terms of the waste that we see, how the waste has changed in these last 20 years. Policies like EPR, of polluter pay principle, all of these, the single-use plastic ban, this has really impacted the waste that is now in landfills. With privatization of waste, we're also seeing with the MRS coming up everywhere, we can see that the waste is now, infrastructure is now in place for circular economy to really be practiced on the ground. Of course, the system is not perfect at the moment, it has its challenges, but as a transitory economy, we need to ensure that we see how we are transitioning, that there shouldn't be too much collateral damage. We need to make this transition happen very inclusively, because we've seen that how waste workers, producer groups, artisans, how like old practices of artisans, all of these things are dying. And if we don't plan the transition of circular economy, we are going to see a lot of negative impact on the ground, especially as a producer country like India. We cannot be like we'll stop producing. Our practices need to change. We need to drive innovation. We need to drive competitive behavior. But we also need to ensure that as a producer country, we make this a socially inclusive circular economy.
Great. And in terms of when you started exporting, sorry, thanks. So in terms of when you started exporting, how was the scenario that in terms of did you face any challenges, or how was it? Can you just take us through?
Sure. So at the time when we started exports, EPCH was a wonderful partner. A stall was given to free at the first EPCH trade fair, export fair for our recycled products. And we gained a lot of Like we got orders about almost 40 to 50 lakhs in that first exhibition that we did with ETCH. So of course we're very grateful for that support. Moving forward, we have seen the market growing. We're seeing the Indian market growing. We launched our retail brand in 2018 and with Lakme Fashion Week, with UNEP's Circular Design Challenge. Since then, at that point, to be honest, the first 2-3 years, it was a big challenge to sell upcycle products, because what we're selling in the market is a very new product. And till you don't touch and feel it, you can't really understand what it looks like. For example, this is one of our bags made from upcycled plastic waste. And so if you see it, when you touch it, you can still feel like, okay, it's a good product. But if you just see it online and it says upcycled plastic, that just sounds strange as a consumer. So that's why if we have more platforms like these exhibitions, retail fairs, we can have a more direct contact with the customer and explain the process, and the customer also gets a touch and feel of the product, which will make sales more viable. But saying that, in Europe and America, we found a ready market 10 years ago for eco-conscious products. That market is still growing, and now we're seeing even commercial brands coming into the space. Earlier we used to supply only to fair trade buyers, but now we're seeing commercial brands coming into the space, demanding certifications, demanding technology, demanding materials that can be used for circular economy.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting what you described. But I would like to just delve on a couple of other points, just to give a perspective to the audience. In terms of the pricing part, were the buyers, willing to pay for that?
That's a challenge we faced till today. It is getting better because the understanding of our upcycle or recycle products is also growing. Earlier we used to have customers who would be like, your raw material cost is zero, you're making it from waste, why is it expensive? But now there is a deeper understanding about the processes it takes. Like at the moment it's way easier for us to just make a virgin product. But that's not what we want to do. And now companies and customers are demanding products and are willing to pay that premium price for a circular product. But of course, it's also important as producers that we are able to show transparency, we're not greenwashing, and so that they're not either. And these kind of efforts, these kind of conversations have started now, and I think we're on the right way ahead.
Thank you so much. Iqbalji, maybe I'll come to you now. In terms of your experiences with the circularity, what has been, the things which you have seen in terms of when you were working on these things?
First thing, I must say that going green is not an option anymore for the MSMEs. I work in the MSME space, so I speak from that space and from their perspective. It is not an option now. Even to survive, the MSMEs and the clusters have to go green. That is number one. Number two, Atul sir initially said, rightly pointed about the dilemma between the low versus high consumption. My take, based on the experience of our organization of the last 17, I can say that sometimes it starts from the raw material that we are using. So, for example, I'll just give an example of, say, right now, the total furniture market is about 1.75 lakh in the country, of which 75% is imported. And it is wood, primarily, and plastics. So, if we look at an alternate raw material which in itself is sustainable, I think we can actually work a lot on circularity and net zero. For example, if we start using bamboo, bamboo is a material which has a tensile strength greater than steel. It is malleable. You can bend it. You can once treated, it can go for 30 years. The bamboo engineered wood is denser than teak. So I think if we really want to look at net zeros and circularity, we should also start looking at the raw material that we are using, and maybe as slightly said earlier, that it has to be by design. So similarly, can we have knockdown products where instead of refurbishing or changing the entire product, can we just refurbish one component of it which is actually not working? For example, the bag that Kanika just showed, I mean, if it will go bad, it will most probably go bad from the corners. So do we have a strategy or a design to actually understand that how do we refurbish the corners and maybe reuse it again? So that is my initial response to the question that you said. We should very closely look at the way we are designing the product, the entire value chain, how we are organizing it. And in fact, now going back to the initial point that I said, if you might recall that EU has now a norm virtually in place where they'll be comparing the carbon emissions of the Indian products, whatever they're importing, with their own standards of carbon emissions. And if the carbon emissions in our product are higher, they'll be charging kind of a carbon tax. So it is about time that we really start looking, and I think design, right from the raw material, are we using organic cotton? Because it is not just from an environmental perspective. A country like ours, which has a huge amount of poor population, I mean, if we start using organic cotton more and more, and the textile segment gets into it, imagine the kind of impact it will have on the life of the farmer who is actually growing the organic cotton. Similarly, bamboo. I mean, it is said to grow at least 10 times in the next 5 years. For that, we need huge volumes of bamboo. And I must say that the ecosystem actually is getting geared up. We are working very closely with National Bamboo Mission and National Rural Livelihood Mission. So I'm happy to share that we are helping National Rural Livelihood Mission to set up 1 million green jobs in the bamboo value chain. So I mean, entrepreneurs who want to actually get into bamboo and start using bamboo as an alternate raw material, I mean, the government is willing and ready and willing to put funds to create that supply chain. So the entrepreneurs need to connect to the supply chains or their common facilities so that they can have big volumes. So it makes business sense also now in today's age and time to actually look at the sustainability of the products that we're talking about. So that is my take.
Thank you so much, Balaji. Just a clarifying question, or maybe more like a additional information. You spoke about this entrepreneurs can connect to. So where should they connect?
I'll give you an example. I mean, you might be knowing there's a small district called Dumka in Jharkhand, where there's an organization called ISAF, which is supplying to IKEA also. So, I mean, there's several. I think there are around. NRLM has 5,000 custom level federations, and they are yearning for private sector participation. They're looking for private sector collaborations. I mean, imagine they want 1 million women in one value chain, and they've identified 25 such value chains. So 25 million women who are, and NRLM, the government is willing to train them to produce contemporary products which are in requirement in line with what the contemporary markets require. There are design institutions who are collaborating with them. There are technology institutions who are coming ahead with the kind of tools and equipment they need. Ministry of MSME is creating these common facilities where this mechanized production, and so that the lot size is bigger and the quality is standardized. So all this is happening. So I think NRLM is the place where you can start with. You can go to state rural livelihood missions. National Bamboo Mission is another place where you can link with them. Similarly, the state bamboo missions you can go. Another you can go, there's a scheme called Spurti, the government of MSME. They have also created around more than 500 common facility centers. Each one of them governed by artisans. Each CFC caters to 250 to 500 artisans.
And so these we talk about what is a CFC in case some.
CFC is a common facility center which is primarily has a machinery or equipment which an individual artisan or an MSME cannot resolve at their own level. So maybe an effluent treatment plant can be a CFC. So just to give an example of what CFCs can be.
Yeah, because then if, for example, the effluent part, if there's an effluent treatment plant, it's required in terms of how the things are being produced.
In fact, our experience is that when the issue is life-threatening for the clusters, then the CFCs work more successfully. So it is followed by a regulation. So, for example, we are recently, right now we are doing a project in Radhabar where we are converting coal-based furnaces into gas-based furnaces. So, because as of now there is no legislation to that effect, or there is no court order for that, the going is very difficult because there is a lot of resistance from artisans, primarily because they are on account enterprises, very small units, some food enterprises. So in the kitchen itself, they have set up these furnaces which are 5 kgs, 10 kgs, 15 kgs. As compared to maybe Agra, where there was a legislation, where there was a court order, and immediately the entire thing converted to to gas pipe. So that is another important aspect. I mean, sometimes an enabling legislation from an environmental perspective, which might not be so, the light way the MSMEs of those clusters, but still in some cases, for change, this kind of legislation will be required.
Thank you so much. And so I see a red thread in terms of designing the products at the initial stage is one of the important parameters, and then you test upon the manufacturing part also, so that there is complete transparency and traceability. Then there will be always preferences given to you. Great. Dr. Bikram, I come to you now and give you, maybe you can add your perspective to this discussion.
Thank you, Sandeep, and with the chair. Actually, I wanted to say two very specific things. One coming out from what Kanika was saying. I think the one thing, and perhaps it was on your mind to bring this up later, and I'm preempting it, is around behavior and the fact that people aren't paying or aren't ready. But there are enough studies now that have, and I can quote and reference those studies, that have clearly suggested now that what happens in India at this point in time is what is being called the say-do gap, which means that if you look at the percentage of people that actually want to switch, as opposed to people who are actually switching on to, that gap is primarily because not so much about their incapacity or lack of willingness to want to pay, but because there isn't enough clarity, and you alluded to that, So I think there is clearly a very strong space for that. So, and I don't want to trivialize this by saying that we need another behavior change campaign or we need an outreach campaign. That's not what I'm saying at all. Because there are enough informed urban markets, and not that they're friends of mine or relatives of mine, but if you were to just look at the Lavender example, just as an example, the fact that they're connecting to 55,000 grassroots artisans and bringing that to the urban market is a model. I'm not saying it's the best model, but I think there is enough awareness at that level. What is not there is some sort of a productization that allows you to have that credibility, and like you said, that are these guys just picking up waste and therefore it's free? Is this the understanding of circularity? Therefore, I think is very, very critical. That's my first point. The second point that I wanted to make, just in context of what you were saying, again, in both my personal experience, over the last many years, but also in my current portfolio, there are bio platforms, and you and I were talking about this earlier, and I just want to sort of highlight this just as a model. In Kanpur, for leather tanneries, there is a UK bio platform. So this is a platform that has about 10 to 15 UK-based retail chain companies, and these are literally the who's who. Why are they on it? I mean, of course, brand consciousness is one, but there's also a degree of accountability. So it isn't just these UK-based companies and the leather tanneries in Kanpur, but of course there are people in between that have facilitated this. They're accountable for the supply chain. So the moment the buyer becomes, in some ways, accountable, and handicrafts today, if you just look at sheer numbers, I'm sorry, I'm not from this sector purely, but if one just looked at broad stats that are available, the handicraft export is going up. It's gone up by, I think, 27 or 28% from last year, which is a lot already. So if we're catering to a global market which is like that, I think these kind of bio platforms where these large brands are not just sourcing stuff and drawing it out of India and then repackaging it and selling it with a story or not with a story, depending on how conscientious or ethical they are, there is clearly room and space to create these kind of platforms and hold them accountable for the supply chain. Because then often the money that we say is not available. Normally people don't want to go down that path of sustainability because it's an additional cost. It comes at a price. Who's going to pay that price? And I think because it's also a G20 conversation, the accountability.
I think the whole value chain pipeline has to collaborate. All the stakeholders have to come together and create the environment to have circular economy started from the initial stages. Very valid point. Thank you. I come to Rahim now. Being one of the largest sourcing company in most public, what has been your experience and journey on this aspect?
We came from a company like a buying agency, so it's one of the biggest global company who is sourcing all kind of this stuff globally, not only India, it's China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So what we have seen in the past years, the shift, the mindset has been changed from the customers. So trend has been changed. So earlier they used to go only for the cotton, but later on it adds to polyester, viscose, some other type of the fibers, even linen. And from last few years, 5 to 6 years, we have seen the major focus is on the sustainability part of the business. They want to understand how we can make the supply chain sustainable, right? I mean, it is not just a supply chain, it is kind of a sustainable supply chain that can be inculcated into the factories so that every person who is working in a factory, he can have a balanced work life. It is not just the product, it is in fact the life of a person who is working in a factory as a normal worker, normal helper. Recently I have seen some of the factories in Murad or in some of the handicraft or hardline steel factories where we see some environment are still not good. I mean, during the working one of the mechanical action, a lot of powder is being spread into the air, the environment was not good. So we go to those factories and advise them what they need to do to comply their factories, how to create a good environment so that worker can work with enthusiasm. He should not feel like, why I'm working in this industry, right? So this is the one aspect, and again, I would like to highlight another point. We are talking about the sustainability, circularity, recycling of the product. So how we can change the mindset, like Mr. Atul said about the mindset. So until this mindset is not going into the core of the industry, I think we are not able to serve the purpose fully, right? If no sustainability, of course, carbon footprint cannot be reduced. Sustainability is not only about the process, it is also about the chemical part of it as well. So how much chemical goes into the environment, goes into the earth. The same is coming us through the agriculture products, right? So this is as a one part of aspect. Thank you.
Very good input. But I would just ask you one more question. In terms of practicalities now of buyers coming in, what is the trend? What percentage of buyers are asking for products which are made in sustainable way?
Right. Okay. So we already started those kind of stuff towards sustainability, like recycled polyester, recycled cotton, and the bamboo fiber, which if I was talking just now. So those are already a part and has been asked mostly many of the US customers and US retailers as well. So what we are doing, it is being certified through GRS, which is certification, and Global Recycle Standard, and RCS Recycled Claim Standards, like OCS, Organic and GOT certification. The vendors need to go through their factory with those certification, and only then they can apply the fibers as a recycled polyester, or they can claim their products like I'm wearing a shirt. It could be 100% polyester or a mix of cotton polyester and then mix of cotton and recycled polyester. So where the word came recycled polyester, we need to get it verified. And that's customer understand, okay, this product is made through sustainable practices. So, and this is another point. Number 2 point is how they are going to market, because in the US and Europe, everybody is now more vigilant on the environment protection. So how they can market their products by putting some kind of the claim in a marketing perspective, right? So that's why they are more towards sustainable practices. So that would I like to say.
So, besides securing the supply chain, they are also using it as a communication story.
Right.
For their consumers.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's why end user knows, I mean, they are really going through with the sustainable products.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Manish, now I mean, we have spoken about the overview, we have spoken about the products, some case studies, we have spoken about the buyers, but we need to secure the supply chains. And how do we do that?
Right, thanks EPCH. Okay, thank you EPCH, Bhubaneswar and others for having QCI in. Just to introduce the council, so we are a part of the Ministry of Commerce and our placement in the Ministry of Commerce is to see that trade goes. And when we talk about trade, it talks about something which is certification, accreditation and concepts which are aligned to that. When I hear my earlier speakers, I see that there is a mix of sustainability, circularity and net zero. I think so each one has a very distinct understanding. Recycling and circularity is not necessarily the same thing, so there are a couple of things that we need to distinguish. I have a very short presentation. It will, to my understanding, there are a lot of ways of learning, but since this is a new concept and in certain cases what QCI does as a part of being the government, I would want to tell you that some concept that we are working on. I won't read through the slides because this is time taking, but I will talk only about concepts. And this will tell that what we are talking has already been done. We could thank EPCH for being the front runners in some of these matters. Apart from the Quality Council being a part of the government, we are also part of the UN system, which means that we actually hold a forum which is called the UN Sustainability Forum, which is partnered by 6 UN organizations, UNEP being a part of it, largely done from the Geneva Secretariat. So I will just quickly go through the concepts that we run, and government also is a big service taker and a provider, and it also is in a way a commodity in terms of these services that we provide. Very quickly I'll run through what we do. So as we know, in the current system, we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, and everything that we do is focused on making us self-reliant. This is the topic of discussion where I touch only about sustainability. When you talk about systems, when we all have heard about our speakers, we all understand that at the end of the day, the buyer needs a certification which is to be done by a third party. Okay, we do self-certifications, we do second-party certifications. They have a certain value, but they don't deliver the value which a third party does. Now, when we talk about the third party in our system is a mix of these 5 government agencies, where we have BIS, which is the national standards body, which is the one which does the IS standards, and you have heard a lot of IS standards. Your bottle has also an IS standard in it. Then we have a metrology, which means that if QCI says this is 1 meter, then that 1 meter has to be traced to the international SI systems, and for that the government has an NPL, and which is in PUSA. So the National Physical Laboratory is the metrology part when you talk about traceability of any activity, right? If you talk about organic, you have given some examples in textile. So for organic certification, the traceability will come from the farms. When you talk about legality in forest, it comes from the forest management unit where the forest crop is grown. So those what traceability systems is something which the NPL does. Quality Council, the organization that I represent, is loaded with the responsibility of accrediting bodies. So when you talk about organic certification, forestry certification in ISO 14, 18, 22K, the bodies who are supposed to give you that certificate are the bodies that first we will review whether they have the competence to give you it or not. So for example, I don't want a set of engineers doing organic certification because they won't know nothing about agriculture, and vice versa. If you talk about something which is drones or otherwise, we need to be having people and processes aligned to the scheme or the certificate that they are going to deliver. Then the next one is the conformity assessment bodies. When you talk about any kind of compliance, right, and this is one of the topics which would be discussed. The compliance would be, demonstrate either by showing a kind of a test report, which is, if you talk about ROHS and stuff like that, it would be talking about some kind of, safety part if you talk about toys. So all that thing comes either through a testing regime, a certification regime, or an inspection regime. These things are to be tested by a third party, which we call it as a conformity assessment bodies, which is second last part. The last part is something which is very, very country specific or market specific. These are the things where the government picks up sample. The most you hear is, and not connected directly with handicrafts, is about samples of milk or something. We talk about certification and everything, but what actually is in the market is the government's concern, because it talks about the safety of the citizen. So this is the overall compliance system in mostly any economy. I'm talking as an example of India, but if you talk about Germany or any other place, you would have a similar sets of bodies. Some roles maybe a private entity is playing, some roles the government entity is playing, but largely this is the structure when you talk about compliance. When I talk about Quality Council of India, this is of the importance, which is the left part, which is the accreditation bodies. So we accredit almost everything in all sectors. Now, why is accreditation important? Because the concept of accreditation is that if one of my labs gives you a lab certificate, it is going to be accepted in 120 countries where we have a MRA, which is called a mutually recognized arrangement or recognition arrangement. So all of my 4 bodies, for example NABL, you test a report, you put it in your community and send it across. Organic certification, PDAT body gives you this thing and it is certified. So once tested, certified or inspected is accepted everywhere is the concept, and this is where the Quality Council has arrangements with 120 countries. This is the division which I handle. Why I give this slide is because whenever you talk about certification of anything related with circularity or anything, there has to be a technical criteria. The technical criteria basically is what the buyer is demanding. So if buyer is demanding a certain kind of, lower than MRLs, in case of pesticides, if you talk about food, and if you talk about chemicals and things like that, this is where that the Quality Council will come up with a scheme with the technical criteria to help the buyer to tell them whatever you have asked is whatever we have tested or certified, and here it is. So the buyer is in a way we kind of take the risk on behalf of the buyer, do the testing certification and give it to the buyer so that he doesn't have to test everything when it comes to this thing. Handicrafts I'm not going to get because everybody would know the handicraft scenario. This is what we guys are supposed to do. We have to empower artisans, we have to sustain industry growth, we have to do it through a multi-stakeholder consultation process, and this is where the schemes that we design is something which is accepted everywhere. Now, these are various areas that we work. I'm not going to get into it because I've already asked for a short time. This is what is my topic on sustainability. As I've just explained, we are a part of the UN system where we actually review projects, programs for the Sustainable Development Goals, and we give first a review of what the particular scheme attaches of the SDGs, and then we do an impact assessment thing. The same has been done for EPCH, and we have done one for the tea sector with the collaboration with the Tea Board of India. Now we have simple methodologies. It is also kind of accepted everywhere. So we have done for BRICS standards, and in this we have identified the SDGs that the BRICS standard, which is more on legality, addresses, and there is a complete report which could be found on their website. So this is what we are saying, and when we talk about the buyer, when they take handicrafts things from here, so we talk about BRICS, how it is mapped to the SDGs, we talk about quality systems in place, we talk about legality compliance, we talk about raw material supply and productions, and this is the complete assessment, and of course the report is with them. When you talk about the impact study, because the first part is to first map the SDGs, and second that how that particular project has helped them to improve their ranking in various SDGs that we have just mentioned. So then there is the impact study, which is all about data churning and analysis of the data in a form to substantiate that whatever SDGs these people are working is actually making some impact on ground. And of course, this is something which the buyers are now interested, because quality is something which is already done and dusted, and now they talk about the other forms of systems. Now, this is some parts that we talk about as the importance of SDG mapping, not going into detail. Then we have, I think so, this is the way forward that we think. We talk about sustainable development. We talk about expanding the base to cover handicraft sector, because as Quality Council, we actually touch everything from aerospace to agriculture. We are talking now of the larger context that we have heard some previous speakers, but now talking about getting into the artisans part of it, which is traceability in terms of the raw material used, the processes used, and of course issues like maybe home working and others will be there. And finally, what we are trying to tell is that because SDG is the concept that everybody understands now, not only the UN system or the national systems, but also the buyer. So this is the new USP that we want India to be embarked on, and to promote them as being aiming towards maintaining SDGs. So these are the kind of organizations that we work in various sectors. We have MOUs with mostly all the international organizations when it comes to standards and conformity assessment. And I think so.
Thank you, Manish.
I have a question for Mr. Manish. Okay. Sir, so I wanted to understand, I mean, like you mentioned all about those practices, certification, sustainability, and all those things. So I wanted to understand, like in terms of the India, if any supplier is making some product and he is marketing it's a kind of, let's say, organic. So how do we ensure he is really, I mean, selling this product as an organic? So is there any body locally in India who can certify, I mean, this is really organic product? Because nowadays we can see many products organic in, in any of the supermarkets.
I got your question. So, okay, when you talk about anything which is a production system, forests are production systems, so are fisheries, so is agriculture. Now, when you talk about organic is a certification system which we call it as a process and a product system. To control the process means the inputs are controlled, which should be organic and not chemicals. And if there are no chemicals as an input, the output will be chemical free. That's period. That is the process as far as the concept of certification goes. However, if you talk about Ganges and other floodplains where agriculture is there, you have floods. In floods, you have the conventional and the organic both flooding, and then the authenticity of that process, not because of the fault of the farmer, but because of the ecosystem dynamics, gets missed. In that case, there is a component that you can do the testing, but only when there is an unnatural event. Now, the process is controlled, inputs are not there, the certification body comes and certifies it as organic. The process is over as far as international systems are concerned. We have an unnatural event, testing is done, lots are carried, and that is also very structured process. You do random sampling, have 3 samples, one is with the farmer, the other is with the lab, and the third one is with the aggregator, importer, buyer, whomsoever. The reports are coming. If the reports are clear, that means even if the unnatural event has happened, the organic integrity is maintained. Over. Now, this is from until the farm gate. After the farm gate, it moves to the aggregators. It could be primary processing, secondary processing in terms of organic. If you could talk about jaggery, if you talk about pickles and things like that. In that, there is a process called chain of custody. The chain of custody is a process where there would be a traceability in terms of the invoices which are handed over from one legal entity to other. I am a farmer, Manish XYZ, cooperative or FPO. She is a processor. So when I give her X number of quintals or tonnage, it will be through a bill of invoice with total amount. She will receive it, she will process it, and when she moves it to the aggregator, she will again invoice it. So the certification body, which is stamping him as organic, will actually, we call it as a mass balance, and each of the point he will see the volumes, the conversion rate, the wastage rate, and then he will calculate that whether exactly that volume has gone or is there any infringement or any kind of a parallel push and messing up with the integrity. So this is how there are structured process. I think so in India there are 28 organic agencies. I know that there is a current struggle with the EU on certain matters. Something is political, something is technical. So there is something which they are sorting out. But in India we have a traceability system called TraceNet within the organic system where all this data is secured, and the certification body which stands the last. So there could be 28 certification body. A can certify me, B can certify, C can certify them. The person who is carrying the certificate, he will carry the organic certification body details will be there. If you as a buyer have an issue on the organic integrity, you go and test, and there are pesticides which are supposed to be like it's not organic in status. You can talk to their certification body, and it is his business to give you an answer. And APIDA is the controlling body as far as the system is concerned. Absolutely. So a longish answer, but I think so you should be clear on this.
Thanks, Manish.
Thank you.
I have one more question for you, one clarifying question, but I would also, request the audience to be prepared because after this we'll take your questions. Just to clarify one aspect, I mean, we are doing our certifications and we have a setup which is coming up now. How is it aligned on a global level? Because if I'm a manufacturer of furniture sitting in Jodhpur and I have the mixed certification, but the buyer comes and says I'm an FSC, so there's no alignment there.
you're right.
So how do we handle those
Okay,
things?
so I will tell you, I had a slide which I think so my team has removed. When you talk about compliance in a country, the compliance comes through two routes. One is the route that the government follows, which is called regulations. Now these regulations, if I give a small example of food, we have a regulator called the FSSAI, which is the Food Safety Standards Authority of the country. Now this food is something which is regulated, which means you have to have a license before you get into processing or putting a packaged or a processed food. So this we call it as a regulatory route through compliance. Government will interfere in every matter which concerns the citizen security and safety, food being one of them. You have TRI, which is the telecom regulator. So you have wherever there is a public safety involved, the government will step in, right? Because it's because they would have to have the force of law to execute and things like that. The second part is where QCI is doing is the voluntary mechanism. Now let us talk about drones for an example. Till the time government would have experts on the drone onboarded into their regular thing, it will be 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, whatever. When it comes to Quality Council of India, we would just impanel some experts. We know how a conformity framework works. We will see what is the latest technology, build in a criteria and start certification, which we are doing. Now, there is a regulatory system, there is a voluntary system. When you talk about the systems that you are speaking, usually it is a mix of both, and it depends upon what is the commodity and what is the buyer's requirement. We go and address it to that extent. If a buyer is talking about, say, there is another important concept which the government is working on, WAW, which is something to do with wealth out of waste. Now, this is a system which is more for the industrial systems. It is not for the small ones, where the government is telling that, okay, if your waste is coming out and if you are doing it in A, B, C, D manner, for example, if there is an energy that you are producing out of waste, if you are doing something which is on construction, so something to do very nearly with circularity, but not exactly circularity. So government is now good in a way start awarding and rewarding such kind of a processes. So there are regulatory ways of compliance, there are voluntary ways of compliance, there are reward systems to compliance. Swachh Bharat Mission, that is another reward system where you are kind of putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, saying you are the best, and the best will remain best and he will work for it. The second will want to move to the first and he will also work like that. So there are various systems which will drive compliance as what you have told. So these are certain processes that we drive to see that compliance is met, and ultimately the citizen is one which is going to benefit. So that is the underlying goal.
Thanks.
I think so if I missed any part of your question, you can ask and I will give you a short answer.
I think we can discuss it separately because we are short of time now, but we'll come to that. Yes, you have a point to
No,
make
it's
here.
not a question, it's just a 10-second intervention. Just to share one other small thing with you. While organic certification is a challenge, India is also successfully trying alternative models. And because we're discussing textiles and handicrafts, I think the Better Modern Initiative deserves a mention. And I think a lot of people know about that. And I just want to leave that with you. And we can have an offline conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amrita. That's a very important point. From the audience part, if you have any questions, please be brief on the question. And if you want some panelists to answer to that, please point out the panelists.
मनीष सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन आपसे है जो हम वेस्ट से हम लोग जूट पे काम करते हैं और वेस्ट मटेरियल जो क्लॉथ्स का वेस्ट मटेरियल है उससे हम प्रोडक्ट्स बना रहे हैं जूट और वेस्ट मटेरियल को मिक्स करके। अब बाहर हमसे सर्टिफिकेशन की बात कर रहे हैं, तो किस सर्टिफिकेशन की हम जाएं जो एक ही सर्टिफिकेशन में हमारा रिजल्ट है?
देखिए, अगर आप वेस्ट की बात करते हैं तो वेस्ट के दो एलिमेंट्स होते हैं, एक प्री कंज्यूमर होता है, एक पोस्ट कंज्यूमर होता है। कुछ सर्टिफिकेशन सिस्टम्स है जैसे FSC है और चीज़ों में, उसमें देयर इज अ सर्टिफिकेशन व्हिच यू कैन क्लेम एज आइदर अ प्री और अ पोस्ट कंज्यूमर। आप वो सर्टिफिकेशन लीजिए एंड यू कैन काइंड ऑफ टेल दैट दिस इज कमिंग एज अ वेस्ट, एंड देन यू कैन, मतलब आपको जो उससे फायदा उठाना है आप उसको उठाइए और आपको एक थर्ड पार्टी स्टैम्प मिल सकता है उसमें। तो जब आप एक सर्टिफिकेशन बोलते हैं, ये एक सर्टिफिकेशन है। अगर आप ऑर्गेनिक सिस्टम्स की बात करते हैं तो ऑर्गेनिक सिस्टम में कुछ वेस्ट नहीं होता है क्योंकि एवरीथिंग इज अ ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल। कुछ चीज़ें जाती है फार्मा में, कुछ चीज़ें जाती हैं कॉस्मेटिक्स में। तो इट इज़ कि वो कंपोनेंट आप कैसे यूज़ करते हैं। अगर उसका स्टेटस ऑर्गेनिक है फ्रॉम अ प्रोडक्शन पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, अगर फसल ऑर्गेनिक हुई है तो उसमें जितना, मैं वेस्ट नहीं बोलूँगा, पर अगर उसके पत्ते हैं या स्टेम है, इट इज़ कंसिडर्ड टू बी ऑर्गेनिक। आई वुड टर्म इट एज अ वेस्ट बट ठीक है, खाने के काम नहीं आता, बट उसके एंसिलरी यूजेस होते हैं। आप उसको एज एन ऑर्गेनिक वहीं बेच सकते हैं, या वहीं आप अपना उससे प्रीमियम ले सकते हैं या मार्केट एंटर कर सकते हैं।
तो जैसे जूट तो ऑर्गेनिक है, लेकिन जो मटेरियल क्लोथ का ले रहे हैं वो हमें नहीं पता कि कहाँ से आ रहा है।
ठीक है,
तो
उसमें
उस पर्पस में कोई एक सर्टिफिकेशन जो पूरे प्रोडक्ट्स के लिए।
मैं आपको बता देता हूँ, ऐसी चीजों में जहाँ पे आप एक कंपोजिट चीज बनाते हो जिसमें आप सर्टिफाइड मटेरियल और नॉन सर्टिफाइड मटेरियल रखते हो, उसमें हम कहते हैं लेबल क्लेम होता है। उस क्लेम में आप ये बोल सकते हो कि मेरा 10% ऑर्गेनिक से है, या 10% रिसाइकल्ड मटेरियल से है, या 40% रिसाइकल्ड मटेरियल से है। आप अपनी तरफ से ही क्लेम लगा सकते हो, क्योंकि आपके पास सर्टिफिकेशन ऑर्गेनिक का है, FSC का है, PFC का, जिसका भी है, आप उसके ही लेके कि दिस इज 10% FSC सर्टिफाइड, दिस इज 20% organic certified as per NPOP norms. You can always put that claim. You can tell your buyer, you can show the certificate, you can talk about the composition of your material, and then you can put it as a marketing tool and get your premium.
Any other question?
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, please.
Just to continue that conversation, when you say that we can get a third-party certification for recycling or upcycling, is GRS the only standard, or is there a local standard available?
See, okay, I come from a system where there is no local standard, no international standards. We call it double standards, and in our system, we don't have that term. हम इंडियंस के लिए थर्ड रेट चीजें बने और बाहर के लिए फर्स्ट रेट स्टैम्प लगा के करें. So for me, a standard is a standard. It doesn't have a local or an international stamp. It depends upon if there is a thing. When you talk about the standard which you have made, it is specifically on a particular thing. But there are many standards which are more production standards, which allow you to do the labeling part, which is also a good part for marketing and getting a premium. So I think so it is not restricted to one standard. If you see, there would be many such sustainability standards as they call themselves. I don't agree with most of them, but they are basically either a voluntary standard or a private standard. But due to the process of certification, where they look at certain good practices, they give you a claim. You can use that claim as a part. In this case, if he is using 15% of that recycled material, he can, in his total product, says that 15% of this is made up of sustainable. And it could be organic, it could be an FSC, or anything which he is getting as a certification point. So nobody can stop it.
I just would like to add one more point here. Like, I mean, in our case, I mean, most of the retailers from US and Europe, what they are asking if you have to claim recycled polyester, you need to go through certification from like GRS and RCS through some third-party agencies.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you mentioned about UL Intertech, UL Veritas, and CUs and all those things. And once they have the certification, they can put those kind of the labels. But if they don't have those certifications, you can't put those kind of the labels, right? So I think that this is what you want to understand.
No, just a second. Let us be clear. You are going to put a claim only when you have a authentic, either a supply chain,
Yes.
where the last person is going to give you a invoice, which is a legal instrument,
Correct.
and a certificate.
Correct.
And with that, he can go ahead and put to
Yes,
question.
yes, and-
You are not. So if he is putting a logo or a label, it is not necessary that an RCS CB will come and certify him. His -1 supply chain, if it is already certified, and if he is not making any material change to the product, he can take it forward without inviting them. So अगर बाहर से कहीं से मटेरियल आ रहा है आपका, वहाँ सर्टिफाई हो गया है, if you are not doing any material change, physical disturbance or any structural change in that material, you can use that and move it forward. I don't think so there would be any issue.
Okay, but this is what the requirements are coming from the retailers. Every year they want to renew those certifications if any exporter is going to ship their products with the label.
The scheme,
Maybe we can.
just one line and I close.
Okay.
The scheme would have all that mentioned, who is allowed to use that and not use that. You read the scheme, that there would be always a chapter on use or the rule for use of logo mark. In that, it is very clearly mentioned whether the material could be certified without a CB coming, if you are just taking and not changing it, or even if you are not doing anything, the CB has to come, that is written there. So you don't have to discuss anywhere, read the document, it will be. That's it, thank you.
Any question from the audience? Any question?
Hi. Hello, myself Abdul Rahman. Actually, I am the manufacturer of handmade carpets. And I have one question. I am making the leather curry, which is made from recycled material. And in that, the same case like my colleague is having, they are asking for GRS and any certificates. So you know, everyone I think know that leather carpets are made from Fatehpur Sikri, and with mix of jute and 100% leather. So they are made from waste material, and customer are asking for certificates, and they collect the supplier collect from different sources from Kanpur and other part of India. They manufacture it. So in that case, how I can assure to the customer that I can provide you the GRS, because it's made from GRS, everybody knows. But I have no option how to make them understood.
I will tell you two solutions. Either call the GRS guys as who certify them, they will come and see and certify you. That is the easiest way, but that is costly because people will come and charge you their Monday rate and their travel cost, point one. That is the easiest way, but you will fulfill the bad demand. The easier way is that once you are taking this waste, you will take it either from, I want to use, see, somebody who's selling waste, right? There could be some bill of lading or some invoices that you are giving. Either you are giving or you are not giving.
No, I'm just having the purchase from them.
Yeah, you have a purchase invoice, right?
Yes.
Or you are paying some amount to them.
Yeah.
In that, there is a clear classification that this is a waste. When you talk about the description of the goods, it will be either it is of some use or it is a waste. Because it is a waste and in the bill it is there, you can always put that bill, talk to your buyer and say this is my traceability in terms of invoicing and the product, and this is where it is a waste, and this is how this is my claim that it is a waste, and these are my documents, and I think so you should do it.
Okay. Can I get a help from your side if I ask someone to make certification, and in that time I need some help from your side, so you can make them to understand.
You can take my details from the organizers and put me a mail with sorted.
Okay, thank you.
Fine. Any other question from the audience? Anybody? Okay. Then maybe I'll ask the chairman to conclude.
Thank you very much. ये जो सेशन था इट्स वेरी टेक्निकल, स्पेशली फॉर हैंडीक्राफ्ट एक्सपोर्टर, क्योंकि हमारे सारे एक्सपोर्टर मोस्टली आउट ऑफ 10,000 8,000 एक्सपोर्टर्स आर वेरी स्मॉल एक्सपोर्टर्स. अगर जो चीज़ हम आज डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, सस्टेनेबिलिटी, गो ग्रीन, कार्बन फुटप्रिंट, सेव वाटर, सेव ट्रेड, पोल्यूशन, वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, हम इसके ऊपर कितने सेमिनार करते हैं, इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू एक्सप्लेन दैट किसी क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है, क्योंकि उनके लिए तो मतलब कि रोज बनाना, रोज कमाना, रोज, पर जिस तरीके हम चल रहे हैं ये स्टार्टिंग है अभी, आई थिंक. और मैं पर्सनली जो समझता हूँ बीइंग एक्सपोर्टर फ्रॉम लास्ट 45-50 ईयर्स, कि जब तक हमारे पास 4-5 वेन्यूज हैं जिसको हम यहाँ पकड़ सकते हैं, आइदर फ्रॉम द टॉप और फ्रॉम द बॉटम. या तो कंज्यूमर इस चीज के लिए तैयार रहे कि मैं सिर्फ ऐसा ही प्रोडक्ट खरीदूं, नंबर 1, और द डिजाइनर कि मैं ऐसा ही प्रोडक्ट डिजाइन करूं कि जो इन चीजों को सबको मोस्टली कवर करे. अगर हम मैन्युफैक्चरर को कहें कि आपने ये करना, तो वो बनाएगा जो कोई खरीदेगा, ठीक है. रिटेलर स्टोर वो बेचेगा जो कंज्यूमर मांगेगा. 3 तरीके हैं, आइदर अवेयरनेस जो सबके लिए हो, आइदर मैन्युफैक्चरर है, बायर है, कंज्यूमर है, और बायर या कंज्यूमर ये फोर्स करे, फोर्स इम्प्लीमेंटेशन, कि हम वही किसी प्रोडक्ट खरीदेंगे. अब कई कंपनीज है हमारे को ऑर्डर करती हैं कि आप पहले इसमें क्या क्या यूज कर रहे हो, इसमें इसकी वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट क्या है, इसकी ये आप कहाँ ये जो भी चीजें सब चीज कितना कार्बन फुटप्रिंट है, तो उसके हिसाब से हमें करना ही पड़ता है. बिजनेसमैन हमेशा ये सोचता है कि उसको कहाँ से अपनी फैक्ट्री का खर्चा निकले, अपने जो सब खर्चे प्रॉफिट्स को पहले सोचता है, उसके बाद में बाकी चीजें बाद में आती हैं. दिस इज प्रैक्टिकल. अगर हम उसको समझ के रखेंगे तो ही उसका रिजल्ट निकालेंगे. अगर हम ये कहेंगे आपको ये करना पड़ेगा, तो फिर तो वही है कि कंज्यूमर के मेरे को तो ये लेना है, ये दोगे तो अपने आप सारा सिस्टम उस पर चलना शुरू हो जाएगा. दिस माई पर्सनल व्यू, क्योंकि ये बीइंग चेयरमैन ऑफ EPCH एंड आई एम आल्सो चेयरमैन ऑफ फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडियन एक्सपोर्टर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, इसमें सारे ही काउंसिल हैं. तो हम लोग ये सोच के चल रहे हैं कि हम कैसे अवेयरनेस को बढ़ाएं, लोगों को ज्यादा बताएं, ताकि हमारी अगर सोच ही बदल गई ना, हमारे सोचने का नजरिया बदल गया तो सब ठीक हो जाएगा। मेरा ही व्यू है। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Thank you, very important points. I think we should now close the session. Thank you, panelists, for very good inputs. Please pass it on.
गुड आफ्टरनून। पता नहीं मेरे से पहले शायद थोड़ा बहुत डिस्कशन तो चलता रहा, मगर ऐसे बड़े डिस्कशन देखे हैं, सुने हैं, प्रैक्टिकल किए हैं, और मैं अभी जो थोड़ा लेट आया हूँ मैं उसके लिए माफ़ी चाहता हूँ, बिकॉज ऑफ देयर आर सम पीपल दोज हु आर रनिंग 5-star होटल्स और ओपनिंग 5-star होटल इन मनाली एंड अदर पार्ट्स। तो उनके जो ऑनर थे मुझे जानते थे, मैंने कहा चलो हैंडीक्राफ्ट चलते हैं। मैं उनके साथ बिजी हो गया, मैं 6 बंदों के पास ले गया। उनको पहले तो होश उड़ गए कि ये जितने प्रोडक्ट्स हैं अगर यूएसए से आते हैं, यूरोप से आते हैं, मगर ये तो यहाँ है सारे। तो मैंने कहा आप क्या सोचते हो? कहते आप ये सोचते थे कि हैंडीक्राफ्ट फेयर है, पता नहीं वहाँ पे वो आरी लेके बैठे होंगे या कुछ वो कर रहे होंगे सारा कुछ। एंड मैं अभी 1 करोड़ के ऑर्डर 6 आर्टिसंस को दिलवा के आया, 1 करोड़ के, और उसके बाद जो भी उनका काम होएगा वो चलेगा। अच्छा, उनको कोई लेना देना नहीं है लकड़ी कौन सी है, बेम्बो है या कुछ है, जो हमारे आजकल एक्सपोर्ट्स के अंदर सारी प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं। तो मुझे अभी नहीं, मैं 12 साल पहले भी उड़ीसा होके आया हूँ, वहाँ के सीएम साहब ने बुलाया था, कोई मिसिज आहूजा IAS भी थी, मगर हमें अच्छे से एक होटल में ठहरा दिया उन्होंने, बैठो जी देखो ये है। मैंने कहा नहीं, मैंने अपने सेक्रेटरी को बोला यार ऐसे है, तू यहाँ से ना स्कूटर पकड़, साइकिल पकड़, वी गो टू समवेयर जहाँ ये प्रोडक्ट बनते हैं। हम गए कारीगर के, आप सोच सकते हैं कि वो कारीगर का जो झोंपड़ी है एक नाले के ऊपर है, उसके अंदर ऐसे ये नाला जा रहा है और वो लोग यहाँ रह रहे हैं। उनके पास मेरे ख्याल 20 फीट का कमरा होएगा, उसी के अंदर वो ब्रास मेटल्स की मूर्तियां पॉलिश करते हैं, वहीं बनाते हैं और वहीं पे जलाते हैं और वहीं खाना बनाते हैं। प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि कई बार हम मानते हैं कि जो बीच वाला आदमी है ज्यादा पैसे कमाता है, मगर उनको वही मिलता है कि हाँ जी ढलाई 20 रुपए किलो या 25 रुपए किलो। सीधा हमें इनको अपग्रेड करना है। देयर आर सो मेनी, आई मीन 7 मिलियन आर्टिसंस। अगर आप उनको देखें या अच्छी तरह जाके अंदर इंटीरियर्स में जाएं तो पता चलता है कि एक्चुअल में है क्या, कौन कमाता है, उनको क्या नहीं मिलता। सो वी हैव टू अपग्रेड दीज पीपल आल्सो। वो भी सोच के चलना पड़ता है। ठीक है, डिस्कशन हमें करना है, क्योंकि जब तक डिस्कशन नहीं करेंगे कई चीजें नहीं निकल पाती। इनिशियल स्टेप्स हैं, इनको अब हम 40 साल से स्टेट के अंदर है, मगर जो अब हमारी लाइफ है मे बी 5 ईयर और 4 ईयर और 2 ईयर्स, मगर हम इन्हीं लोगों के लिए काम करेंगे। और जो हम पिछले 30 सालों से हम लोग हम लगे हैं, जिस कॉम्प्लेक्स में आप बैठे हैं ये हमारे सिग्नेचर से हुआ है। इसके अंदर कितनी मेहनत हुई होगी कोई नहीं जानता। उसके अंदर मल्होत्रा जी ने कम से कम भी 500-600 मीटिंग की होंगी, मैंने 1300 मीटिंग की है ड्यूरिंग दिस वर्चुअल। अभी कोरोना टाइम के अंदर 2 बार कोरोना मुझे हुआ है। मैंने पीयूष गोयल जी के साथ 1180 वर्चुअल मीटिंग की है। आई लॉस्ट माई आईज ऑल्सो अभी, क्योंकि इनसे पहले मैं चेयरमैन था, अभी भी हैं, उसमें कोई नहीं है। हम सब एक दूसरे को ये नहीं कहते कि ये फॉर्मर है या प्रेजेंट है, कुछ है, बट वी वर्क एज ए टीम। दैट इज आवर मोटो। सो थैंक यू सो मच।
Thanks to all of you. Well, from the realm of thought to the realm of action, much has been done, but not as much as it should have been. But all the learned panel here are doing their bit and are committed to it. So what needs to be done is to percolate it down to all levels of society. One needs to create more awareness and change the mindset. Thank you so much once again. We'd like to present mementos to all our learned panel. I request Rajkumar Malhotra ji along with Ravi Kipasi ji to kindly present these mementos to our eminent panel. Mr. Sandeep Sanan ji, a memento for you. Shri Atul Bagai ji. Shri Iqbal Ayyam. Shri Ram Agrawal. Harika Ahuja. Dr. Amrita Sharma. And Shri Manish Khan. We thank them once again for their very valuable inputs, and thanks to all the participants. We'll be starting our next seminar after this. Without any further ado, I'll be shortly introducing the speakers to you. And yes? Talk to them first. Any time, I'd just like to tell you that we'll be talking about new wood species available for handicraft sector. So those of you who are in the enterprise, in organization, in business where you use wood, kindly stay with us. The others can also stay. Thank you. He's a scientist at Forest Research Institute, Dehradun, and working on tree improvement and biotechnology for last 25 years. And we also have amongst us Dr. Shailendra Kumar. He's a scientist at Forest Research Institute, Dehradun also. His area of expertise is wood and bamboo seasoning and wood modification. So we have these two speakers here. I request them to kindly begin the seminar, to begin their talk. आप शुरू कर सकते हैं? हाँ जी, हमारे बीच हमारे चेयरमैन राजकुमार मल्होत्रा जी और हमारे पास चेयरमैन रवि आसी जी तो हैं ही. हम उनसे आगे चाहते हैं कि हम ये सेमिनार शुरू करें.
थैंक यू वेरी मच. आज के टाइम में एक्सपोर्ट के कुछ जरूरी पार्ट ये हैं. अपनी क्वालिटी, प्रोडक्शन, रेट, डिलीवरी के अलावा तो प्रायोरिटी पे आ गए कंप्लायंसेस. चाहे फैक्ट्री कंप्लायंस है या आपका ये जो ब्रिक्स का सर्टिफिकेशन है. अगर आप वुड का काम करते हैं, फर्नीचर करते हैं, कोई भी करते हैं, तो आप इसके बिना अब आप मेरे ख्याल में कोई एक्सपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते. तो सबसे पहले होता था कि आप डिजाइन आपके कैसे हैं, आपकी क्वालिटी कैसी है, आपके रेट कैसे हैं, ये सब थे. अब कोई भी बायर आपके पास में, उसकी यूएसपी आपकी यही है कि आपके पास सर्टिफिकेशन है और आप उसको प्रॉपरली फॉलो कर रहे हो, तभी आप सर्वाइव कर सकते हैं. अदरवाइज आप ज्यादा टाइम इस बिजनेस में सर्वाइव नहीं कर सकते. ये मेरा पर्सनल व्यू है. तो आप लोग यहाँ आए, आपने टाइम दिया, आप सबका स्वागत है. और इसके ऊपर आपको कोई भी क्वेश्चंस हो तो मेरे ख्याल में एक्सपर्ट पैनलिस्ट हैं, वो आपका जवाब देंगे. और हम तो सिर्फ आपके लिए इस तरीके के सेमिनार कर सकते हैं. आपको बुला के, पैनलिस्ट को बुला के आपसे मिलवा सकते हैं. बाकी आप क्या लेके जाते हैं ये आपके ऊपर है. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Kind of overview of the presentation. We will be speaking about main reasons of timber shortage in India and of course options available. And specifically, we will be concentrating on media dubia, and then we will speak about its, the process of how we have to genetically improve upon it, and what are the benefits of genetically improved trees. And then of course we will be speaking about the wood specific aspects to it, including the modified wood, and everything leads to the availability of quality planting stock and what are the kind of recent developments have taken place. So let's begin with the kind of reasons why there is a timber shortage. And if we look at the National Forest Policy 1988, which basically concentrated more on forest lands which cannot be used for or cannot be leased out to the private companies. And then the natural forests, they were really not available for the industry, and industry therefore was to have its own wood for the industrial purposes, and therefore we had very serious issue of lack of planting stock. By its own, superior planting stock was far to a cry, and then there were certain restrictions imposed upon. There were certain legislations which really restricted tree felling, and all of us, you are aware, I suppose, that 1996 it was the Supreme Court of India which decided that there is no felling of fresh wood from the forest, and therefore it led to so many things, and it led to a situation where we are today, and therefore we are talking about how we can really generate our own goods. And then if you speak about inadequate domestic availability of certified wood, there is no, I would say, point of discussion on this, because we know only about 1.5% is available, certified wood, and rest is uncertified. And if you speak about raw material, basically the wood components domestically produce premium quality is about 30 to 40%, and rest all of you are aware. I feel me and Dr. Selen Kumar is we have too tiny people to tell all this about you all. Then of course import duty is another issue, and then over dependence on alternate costly alternatives of transportation, including roadways, because this is the only way to transport is available. And then there are lack of initiatives from industry as well, where perhaps industry is little conservative in having those initiatives which really can help the industry by its own. If we can speak about ply and panel industry, they have taken the initiatives and they are today in a very, very comfortable position in terms of availability of the wood. However, the timber sector is somewhere lacking. And then if you compare with China, the raw material, the transport, logistics, and other miscellaneous overheads are much more expensive in India than otherwise over there. It has been calculated that the cost, an average cost is about 25%, escalates over the product, the same product, same wood available in China, and therefore we have to work upon what are the options we have got. So these are few options we are speaking about, and we must really not count upon the natural forest, because they are very, very limited scope available now. Then option number 2 is that we go for the imports, and I feel option number 3, for which we all are here, is agroforestry wood for furniture and handicrafts. So I feel first 2 options, I do not know how much we can speak about, how much we should discuss about. I feel the Honorable Chairman himself has said, if we have to sustain, we have to find out alternate routes, and one of the alternate routes is to grow quality timber wood in under agroforestry. And one such tree which we are today here to discuss about is Brevia dubia. It is one of the timber species which FRI has come up with in last 2.5 decades or so, and the species is really wonderful in agroforestry, and in solid wood based handicraft sector of India, it can really do wonders if we take it in a very right spirit, in a very systematic manner. This is a species which is grown, is a native to India, and of course known as Gora neem or Malabar neem or Meeta neem and so on and so forth. The benefit of this species is that this is a species which has got very high diversity available in India, and it grows right from down south to up to 1,500, 1,800 meters above sea level, and not very prone to insects, pests, and so on. And then if we start how we started this program, I would request all the audience to please keep these 4 photographs in mind. When we started our tree improvement program last some 20-25 years ago, this was the situation where you could see these plantations, whether it was in the pure plantation or agroforestry or under irrigated or unirrigated conditions. Then we went to the natural extents of the species. We selected such kind of trees which could be some use to us, which are straight, which has got very good crown shape, which have high wood value and all that. And based on these characters, we started our improvement programs. And today we are in a situation, you could just see that somewhere these were the starting point, and today we are in a situation. These are commercially available trees in the field, and you could see what the kind of soupy and straight bole it has got, the kind of clear bole, and then the girth it has got. It had a very serious germination issue. When we started, there were friends of ours who said that don't burn the fingers with this species because it has got very low degree of germination. In south it germinates about 20% or so, and in north it is about 40% at the maximum. And therefore we started working on that, and then we found various factors. And today, if I just say it, many of us would be surprised that it germinates about 250%. 250% in terms of the stone, because every stone has got about 5 to 7 seeds, and it provides the conditions, all of them can germinate and germinate well. You could just see that from single stone you can have 1 seed, 1 seedling, 2 seedlings, and it goes up to 7 seedlings. So it's up to us, the kind of conditions we provide, the kind of environment we provide for them to germinate, and this is the kind of stock we have got available. So the genetic improvement, when we say, it doesn't mean anything. It means only testing or rather evaluating its performance in terms of its progenies, whether those progenies are as good or bad as that of the parents, and that requires a lot of scientific, I would say, acumen to really go about it. It requires so much of hard work and all that. Anyways, we did all those works, and today the plantations, you could see these are our progeny trials in different parts of North as well as in South India, and this is one of such trials which is available on the Pakistan border of Punjab. In Punjab, it's in Changa, called Chak Sarkar in what is it? I'm just forgetting the name of the district. Anyways, it's in Punjab, Pakistan border, and one of the farmers from us took certain material and grew it in Latur in Maharashtra. And this is at the age of 1 year. You could just see the kind of straightness and the kind of girth and clean bole and all that it has got, and the kind of uniformity it has got. It's just amazing. Even we have been working for so long. Even I was surprised to see these photographs. And then we went on developing these progeny trials in different parts of the country. Could just see there's many parts, many regions. And then, we developed a system in India where genetically improved plants can be released for the commercial cultivation, and there are different steps. And this is the first step where team goes based on the document submitted and verifies the kind of characters a tree has got in the field. They visit all the fields, and then the second level committee, evaluates the proposal you have submitted as well as the independent report submitted by the first committee, and then that it merged it, and finally in the chairmanship of Director General Forest and the Special Secretary of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the materials are released for the commercial cultivation. This way we released these 10 clones in 2010, varieties in 2017, and if you see the productivity, it ranging from 23 to 55 meter cube per hectare per year. which on an average it calculates to about 35 meter cube per hectare per year. Let me remind you, this is the productivity is almost double of eucalypts and 1.5 times of poplar. So this is that productive material which is available in India. And eucalyptus and of course poplar, they might not be all that good resources for timber industry, but this is one tree which really meets the requirement of pulp industry, the paper industry, and of course the plywood industry as well as the timber. This is one of the very good timbers which we will be discussing it further. And these are the kind of varieties we have developed. You could just see the kind of straight bole it has got, the kind of what you call crown, and not free stem, which really makes it enables it to produce more amount of merchantable biomass. The waste is very less, and the softwood is almost not available. So it's a kind of this thing. Now let's look at the properties of the Brevia wood. The specific gravity is ranging from 0.4 to 0.62 or so, and therefore it gives you so much of options, because until now I was just rushing through the slides because I did not want you to really feel bored, but this is the domain where perhaps you people are more interested. So the specific gravity, it varies very specifically. Would you like to continue? Yeah, okay. And then let's look at other factors of this one. And when you compare it with mango, it's almost very close by to mango, and we all know mango wood is really we are perhaps not going to have mango wood for very long time. Now we have got all those mango varieties which are more specific to food production, because the sourcing relationship has been designed in a way that it produces more fruits than wood. And maybe in days to come, the mango wood would be in museums only, and therefore one has to go for an alternate wood, and this is one wood which is available. If you look at the Tangenial and syncases, it's almost little higher than that of mango. However, if you look at the permissible limit here, this is all in permissible limit. So all these woods are in permissible limit, and of course we compare it with teak. So that way this wood is again a very good alternate to mango. If we speak about its hardwood proportion, it has about 62% of hardwood. So anyway, about 27 to 28 percent is the softwood, which is I feel in a very high degree of acceptance level. If you talk about Tectona grandis, of course we cannot compare Raja Bhoj with Gangu Teli, but still if you talk about the teak has about 25 to 30%, 32% of wood available, whereas this tree gives you about 62%, which is I suppose a very good sign. And you could see the wood parameters, be it fiber length or vessel diameter, and so on. So they are in a very good permissible limit. I mean the fiber length is about 700 plus micrometer. And then this is the seasoning schedule for the species, and I feel it dries and dries very fast, so there's no issue with this. And then this is the kind of preservative intake properties of the species. So it takes quite reasonably those preservatives, and these are other working quality index, and based on those working quality index, we found this species to be doing very well, be it boring or moisture content, this is turning point or shaping or planning. All these parameters is doing very well. So are other parameters related to this. then this is wood quality, based on wood quality index. Working quality index. So this does very well when we compare with the mango. This species fairly about 81 and 79%. These were two different exemplars, whereas mango has got 90, and it is in comparison to teak, which has 100 points. So if you look at that, it's quite reasonable. In terms of strength, it's better than mango on all three parameters which have been analyzed by Dr. Sailendra Kumar in his laboratory. And there was a survey which was conducted at FRI Dehradun, where we had invited different class of people, students to the industry people and all that, and we never told them what the material basically has been existing there. And we found, we asked those people who surveyed it to choose the products which had been kept over there, and we found in all the cases they preferred this is mango, and this one is the horizontal one is Melia, and the vertical one is the mango. And we found all of them, selected Melia products over that of mango. And this is the kind of modified wood based on thermo-hydro-mechanical methods, and using this method, I feel all of you are aware in the industry how this is useful. The density has been enhanced from 0.58 to 0.75. So this is one of such wood which can really go into this sector very well. Then this is little more interest, because we have not just stopped by releasing these 10 varieties. We want a sustainable or rather a sustained research for a longer time, and therefore now we are involved with hybridization of these species to produce more productive hybrids, so that the growing wood of the growing demands of the wood could be completed. And this is the kind of variability we have been analyzing, we have been utilizing for our hybridization program. So this is a typical R&D program. I would not go much into it. Only factor is that when you do hybridization for the industry by climbing on a tree of about 25-30 meters when a small flow of wind makes you little jittery whether you would be able to sustain and survive on that height once you fall down or not. So these are the kind of efforts I thought, and then you will have to analyze various factors. Early in the morning by 4 o'clock you will have to wake up and be in the field to make these hybrids. So gentlemen, before the wood comes to you, you will have to really realize that there are a lot of efforts go into it, and then only these woods are made available to you. So these are the stages. For example, this is from bud to the opening stage. So if you do your hybridization process over here or over here, I mean it will not result anything. The whole effort will go waste, and therefore you have to choose the right stage for such hybridization programs, which really requires a lot of intensive work, a lot of hard work, as well as a lot of planning. And this is how once you really do the hybridization, these are the developmental process. How different parts of the flower and the fertilized this is the female part, these are male parts, and how those fertilized cells grow from one this thing to one full seed, and that's how you get this. And one of the such benefits of this species is that it attracts so much of honeybees. And on this we have come up with full publication of this book. Very recently, last year, this book has come with 32 chapters on various aspects. We have got other parameters also available, and then we have got it's planting both seed as well as seedlings available from 3 certified nurseries of FRI as well as from FRI itself. So with this, I thank you all for having a pleasant hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Thank you very much. Now, since I'm sorry I was late, I couldn't come when Dr. Kumar started his presentation. I'll give you a brief background why we are organizing this seminar.
See, what we have done is we have joined hands with FRI, and we have got two eminent scientists from there, Dr. Shailendra Kumar and Dr. Ashok Kumar, who have been pioneers with respect to this Melia dubia species that we are trying to introduce into the handicraft sector. Because as you all know, in the wooden handicraft sector, the species, the wood species which are being used, and you can count them on fingers. I mean, people are using sesame, people are using acacia, people are using mango, and there is no other fourth species. There may be, but I am not aware of. So this is one species which we are working on, and what we have done is we have a common facility center in Saharanpur, and over the last course of 6 months, what we have done is we have procured wood from FRI under their guidance, and we have got some products developed, and those products are on display at this fair. Mr. Dipesh Sharma, my colleague, is here with me.
Intense hall number 15.
In hall number 15, there is a display of Melia dubia products, handicraft products that we have made over the last course of 6 months. You are most welcome to visit that place, and that wood is also available in Saharanpur depot. So if you have any requirement of wood, you can get in touch with Mr. Dipesh Sharma. He will help you procure that wood. We would want you to use this wood and give us feedback, because what that will do is that would encourage our scientists to come up with new species. So that's kind of encouragement is very important. So this is the background. I should have given this background before Mr. Kumar, Dr. Kumar started his presentation, but there is somewhere. But this is what we are trying to do. Now, thank you, Dr. Shailendra Kumar, Dr. Ashok, thank you very much. Now, we have one more presentation before we felicitate our guests. We have a presentation on BRICS. We have Ms. Niti Varma with us. She is the CEO of GIPL. So I will request her to make a presentation.
And especially after the enriching session of FRI. Rajat, can we have the presentation? So, the presentation that I'm going to deliver has a lot of parts already discussed in the previous session of SIRS, Dr. Ashok, and already the background is set to discuss about the certification. I'm here to discuss about the BRICS certification. And before starting, before going deep into the certification and why did BRICS came into being, and what are the problems faced by the certification industry as a whole. The background is set by Dr. Ashok that there is definitely scarcity of wood species, and to start off with that topic, let's first understand that where did the certification, how did it came into being. I'm sure we all have very less time to rush back to our homes. I'll take very less time in giving you the background. So these are some of the things that we are going to discuss in the presentation. Forest certification came into being with the massive industrial development, and with the massive industrial development, there was more of requirement of wood for fabricating our houses and furnitures, and because of the boom in the industrial development. So a lot of trees were cut without any cognizance towards the impact on the environment, and then global warming began. So ultimately in Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit, and also in Kyoto Protocol, it was brought into the notice of the world leaders that global warming is definitely one of the causes because of deforestation. And this led to a lot of acts, a lot of regulations from the first world countries, that is USJC Act, EU Timber Regulation, Australian illegal logging prohibition. They started producing and they started thinking in this direction of how to protect our forest and how to ultimately contribute towards climate conservation. So these acts and regulations, though were very, very beneficial for the Mother Earth, but it led to a lot of roadblocks for the manufacturers of products and also the importers and exporters of the various products which are used in our day-to-day lives. So that is how various self-help groups like non-government organizations came into the rescue of the exporters and manufacturers. They suggested the way forward for the forest certification. They said that, okay, you can use forest products provided you are managing them well and you are making sure that those are sustainably managed. There is no point of keeping the only conservation aspect of the forest intact, but managing it well, which can contribute for the economic and social development of the dwellers who are dependent on the forest produce. So benefits of forest certification is it promotes sustainable trade, it ensures legality of raw material, it provides evidence of responsible management at source, it provides global recognition to the company because global warming and climate action is the topic of the town of every country right now, and is definitely a marketing tool to boost the brand image of any organization. The most popular global timber certification which came into being in 1990s was PEFC and FSC. And right now we can very proudly say that WRICS is also one of the most robust certification mechanism in India right now, which is worldwide accepted. The further slides that I'm going to discuss is taken care by Dr. Ashok in a very, very elaborate manner. I'm only going to give a gist of this, that the major species which are used in the handicraft industry are shisham, mango and acacia. And I would like to say that there is a case study wherein why mango wood would not be available, in coming years, as Dr. Ashok said that the recent varieties which are being developed by scientists is that mango tree would be mostly cultivated for the fruit and not for the wood of the mango. So there would not be any trees of mangoes, and there are a lot of varieties already developed which are mostly shrubs and not the trees of mango. So mango wood definitely is going to soon be unreachable wood for the manufacturers and traders. So yeah, considering other, so these three species are definitely the only species which are widely used by various certification industry, and also because of the dependence of manufacturers and exporters, especially the handicraft industry, on these three species is a factor which is contributing in lesser certificate issuance by these two international certifications, that is PEFC and FSC. So we have what we understood here is that even though forest certification came into being, right now we are at the juncture where the international certification schemes which are prepared at by some first world countries like Europe or US isn't going to work as effectively in the country of India, because even though you have a process, a mechanism by which a product can be certified, but the vital element to get a product certified is the requirement of certified raw material, which India is definitely lacking because of lack of these available species. So these are some of the sourcing of raw materials. Most of the raw materials are sourced from agro farmers, especially in India. These sources are not covered under forest areas. Those two international certifications of FSC and PEFC do not cover the certification of trees outside forest or plantations. The standard is specifically restricted to the forest land. So yeah, this is one of the problems problems that we are facing with international certifications. So what is the way out is that since most of the raw material that India is producing is from trees outside forest, we need to look into the mechanism, the standard where trees outside forest can come into the certification mechanism. This we already discussed here. So this is a comparison that FSC and PFC have, even though they are existing since past 30 and 40 years, they have not been able to make their impact on the source of certified material in India. So EPCH, since it's working in development and finding a new wood species, similarly they realized this problem 5-7 years back, and they thought that since trees outside forest is the main source of produce in India, why not to get trees outside forest certification and trees outside forest certified material into the certification system, so that all the handicraft manufacturers get certified products. And then they, in collaboration with an NGO, that is NCCF, they developed a standard for trees outside forest. And trees outside forest are trees plants. These are the standard for trees planted alongside roads. This was already discussed by Dr. Ashok in one of the slides. And these are the various trees which comes under trees outside forest scope: block plantations, scattered trees on farmlands, tree on highway median, trees in urban areas. And to develop this standard, some very important stakeholders were involved, as is the case of development of any internationally recognized standard. These were some of the important stakeholders. So this is how the NCCF TUF standard was developed by EPCH, and to ensure that there is continuity of certified raw material. So why EPCH thought of this problem? That in 2010 EPCH was in the, they were in the front running space when there was a lot of problems with the restriction of Dalbergia species, Shisham species, and they helped by making the standard of RICH. And then in 2015, when Dalbergia species was considered one of the endangered species, they launched a program called RICH Shipment. And then they're continuously looking out for the solution of various problems which are happening globally, to make the manufacturers equipped with the solutions beforehand. What is RICH chain of custody? EPCH, an apex body of handicraft exporters for promotion of export from India. EPCH is involved in uplifting India's export supplies and help manufacturers to combat and comply with the new requirements. In response to EUTR, RICH was developed, and it also helped to combat Lacey Act and other like Australian illegal harvesting acts. It was developed following a DGFT notification. It takes care of the supply chain due diligence. It fulfills all the criteria to verify legality of food from the country of India and the respective state. RICH is open to accept and does accept FSC and certified PFC certified raw materials, and that is why it is more acceptable. It has more. It endorses other certification programs basically as well, whereas the other international schemes don't, for example FSC and PFC. RICH Shipment Certificate, which was also developed by EPCH, is a CITES compatible document developed in 2017 and after the inclusion of Dalbergia species in Appendix 2 of CITES. It ensures verification of all the shipment, all the shipment which is being sent out of India with the Dalbergia genus are 100% verified and on-site verification is done for those shipments. It is globally accepted program in 184 CITES signatory countries around the globe. So basically EPCH thought that by developing a trees outside forest certification program, which they have already developed with NCCF, what they can do is make certified raw material and then make the final product, be it PEFC or FSC certified and or BRICS certified, and then the manufacturers will be in a better position to export their material, which has those kind of buyer requirement with them. Benefits, when a product would be BRICS certified, they can have counterclaim of other international certified schemes as well, for example PEFC and FSC. Let me make one thing clear here is that as far as endorsement of any other certification scheme is concerned, FSC is not very adjusting with that, whereas PEFC, as the name suggests, Program for Endorsement of Forest Certification, does take care of endorsement of those schemes. So EPCH is in a practice is going to push all their energy to make BRICS certification also PEFC endorsed. So that is one of the things which is on the pipeline. PEFC is a globally accepted certification scheme which is accepted by all these organizations worldwide. EPCH plans to enable wide cultivation of identified new species and then certifying those against the TUF standard. EPCH has already initiated to certify catchment areas of various categorized clusters to enhance and expedite the process of enabling certified raw material supply to the industry. Why EPCH's role and BRICS role is important in combating these regulations is because EPCH, in turn BRICS, is an indigenously developed certification program, and it is very convenient to make any changes in the standard as per the regulation outside or any other country, whereas the international schemes which are not, they are self-help groups, they have a top-down approach and they do not encourage immediate solutions to any regulation which is there in other countries, for example EU or New Zealand or any other country. So it is very handy for Indian context to make amendments in the BRICS standard for any upcoming regulation, and EU is going to come up with soon with some of the regulation which has the objectives of tackling deforestation, and the scope of regulation is also going to expand to other species. Complete due diligence, which is already existing in our BRICS standard right now, and focus on sustainability at the source of procurement. Way forward, as I discussed, that since BRICS is an indigenous scheme, it is plausible to make amendment as per the international legislations more frequently. EPCH is in a constant endeavor to challenge themselves. They have an aim to ensure 100% sourcing from certified sources by 2028. So that was about the BRICS certification and in comparison to other international certification schemes. Thank you.
Thank you, Niti. Thank you very much. As Niti must have told you that BRICS is an indigenous scheme run by Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts and is recognized in 184 CITES signatory countries. So if you want any more detail about BRICS scheme, my colleague Mr. Deepesh Sharma is here. He is the nodal person. You can get in touch with him. Now, if you have any questions for our scientists, Shailini or Ashokji or Niti, you can shoot, you can ask your question, or else you can felicitate them. You have?
Yeah, sir, I just wanted to check upon the declaration you're talking about, the mango being not available in coming years. Do you have any timeline defined for that?
Timeline cannot be defined, but yeah, I believe in next 10 already whatever new mango cultivation is being done is on of the new species, and there is no mango wood coming out of those wood species. That is why you would not find any mango wood tree by the roadsides as well.
So the new species would not be sustainable for the furniture, you mean to say?
I would not say it won't be sustainable because mango is a food crop. It is not a wood species. But yes, mango wood would not be a very good option for the manufacturers to consider in the long run.
So in long run, we feel that FSC certification will not be valid, not be given, if it has to be done through export to India. So it's going to get, the wood definitely is going to get, changed by some other wood, you need to say?
Yes, because FSC certification is also, FSC certification is applicable for any forest.
Right.
Mango wood is never available. I mean, from way back, 20, 30 years back, from that era only mango wood was not available in forest anyhow. Forests had mango wood, forest certifications had mango wood in India because of social plantation.
But the exporters, but the exporters are still using this certificate.
Exactly. So that is why I gave this presentation for you to understand that those are only eyewash. Mango wood cannot be certified because FSC and PEFC talks about forest management certification. If any certification can give mango wood certification, then it should be trees outside forest because mango wood is not cultivated in, it is not a naturally grown wood anymore.
But then the exporters which we are exporting right now, the mango wood, are they buying illegally and getting the FSC certificate? How is that possible that, the amount of that 5% you're talking about and the amount of exports happening in the mango wood?
Absolutely.
Is way beyond the numbers.
That surprises me as well. I definitely want to understand more about those FSC certification sanctity.
Thank you very much.
I would like to, can you hear me? Yes, I would like to add more. As ma'am already explained that why mango will vanish in near future, because the mango we are growing in our fields is meant for fruits, not for timber, and they are hybrid. So as mango is as old as 2 to 3 years, it starts producing fruit. So in earlier days, the mango started to yield fruits after 10, 12, maybe 20 years, right? So the biomass which is being captured during photosynthesis, which is being converted into fruit, right? So this is the reason we are growing hybrid mango, and this is the reason we are not actually in sustainable business, right? What is sustainable thing? That means the quantity which we are actually using today, we grew it yesterday, and the quantity which we will be using tomorrow, we are growing today, right? So the only the answer is to grow wood in fields, and certainly mango is not in the list. This is why Dr. Ashok Kumar ji talked about Camellia dubia. Camellia dubia is plantation grown timber, and which is fast growing. You may cultivate it for furniture and handicraft less than 10 years. It can give you good quality of wood, and since it is grown in farms, in field, or it is grown by farmers, right? So of course it becomes sustainable because you are not doing deforestation, or you are not doing any harm to the forest, natural forest. Of course, natural forest policy in India does not allow to do anything in our natural forest. So all these things are actually interconnected. All things are interconnected, and the situation which we are going to face in near future will also be interconnected. The problem is very much clear. We need wood, and the answer is also very much clear. The wood should be grown in the field, on the farms.
So it's like the special category that we're building up for export for wood. The Camellia dubia, you mean to say that it's going to be especially, it's going to be like people, you will be telling people to buy these wood rather than buying mango and see exactly that this wood is sustainable in the near future.
Mango won't be available.
Yeah, but then that's the timeline. I just wanted to know. I come from US. We import from India. Ashler Furniture. So we generally have a lot of products coming out of Jodhpur. We do about 150 containers a month from them, from a lot of the vendors we have. So our only concern would be, my reason to come here and attend was this only, that when we're talking about anything which is going, trying the timeline, we need to change ourselves in the pattern itself. So that's more important on our end. So I'll definitely try to meet you, sir, after this, and we'll discuss it.
You can interact.
Haji, please.
I think the idea is what our presentation before this was, that why not we have alternate wood species, since we have a huge resource of timber, but the kind of wood which we are using is very, very limited. So why not, with our scientists, with the help of our scientists, introduce new wood into the industry? That was the idea. Yeah, you want to ask something? Quick question.
Sir, actually I wanted to say, actually we are confused about sustainability. If you will say about conscious consumption, actually we are trying to produce more mango. Instead of that, we can say consume it consciously. We will not lose the timber of the mango also, and we will not lose the fruit also.
You didn't get what Dr. Shailendra spoke about. See, earlier mango used to be, it was a 10-year period, and the girth of the mango used to be huge. But now, since now the hybrid species have come, within 2 years' time you have fruit bearing.
Yes, we are promoting the market to consume more and more.
Yes, see the mango, the wood is a byproduct of that species. Focus is fruit. So we are missing that point, right?
I just wanted to add, am I audible?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add one more thing what Dr. Shailendra just touched upon. Actually, when a tree grows, there are a proportion of the minerals and water it absorbs from the soil. Utilization of that proportionally, either it uses for production of wood, as Ravasar said, when mango was, start fruiting after 10 years, 20 years, so much of those nutrients and food was going for the wood formation. And once the wood has been formed, then the fruits would be coming. And once the fruit formation takes place, the proportion of the food materials to the wood proportion or timber goes very, very less. Here now the case is, as Dr. Shailendra said, you have got very good hybrids, be it Daseri or Lagna, and whatever you talk about, they are good hybrids, and they have been thereafter cloned. They have been forced to fruit after second year or first year itself. Nowadays you plant this season you plant a small sapling, next year it will fruit. So the proportion of the wood towards wood would be very, very less, and therefore you need to go for the alternate woods. And what we were talking about, Melia dubia is one of such wood. I am also, I'm not creating the panic, but I would really, I would be very happy to put a caution over here that the time has gone that take the seed and grow it. Now the land resources are very limited. Now that land resources, it's up to you to have a low quality of planting material, grow 1,000 plants and get 10 cubic meter of food. Rather than that, I would say have lesser areas in the cultivation, but grow the productive materials. See, rather than 1,000 trees, grow only 100 trees, which can give you more wood than otherwise those 1,000 trees would have given. One thing. Secondly, the quality of these 1,000 trees, 100 trees would be known to you. You would know before you grow it what kind of end product you are going to have. And I can also connect this to what Dr. Nidhi Verma said. When the forest certification comes, we were lacking on one aspect, gentlemen, in our country, was like in agriculture. When you go, you have different varieties for wheat. You have a variety for wheat for chapati making. You have a variety of wheat for rava making. You have variety of wheat. Hundreds of varieties. I feel by now 2,400, 2,700 varieties in wheat have been released. Some of them have become obsolete. The new varieties have come and then take over the new varieties. It is just, and that's how the green revolution has taken place. I am not going to go into that. But what I am trying to say that now the time has come, we should go for the released varieties, we should go for the certified material. And when we grow the certified material in the field, the job of Dr. Nidhi Verma would be much more easier, because you have completed already 2 to 3 steps. You are not really required to go to the background. You can straightway go for the certification of wood. And I feel once the certified wood is available in such a plenty, the gentleman what he was asking from US, their problem would also be solved. So I feel this is hitting many targets with a single bullet. It's up to you to choose the bullet and fire it. And I feel this industry is a very valuable industry, and has to have, I'm opening the subject by myself, has to have some kind of connect with value chain. You cannot just sit aside in a corner and think that quality would come to me. I feel the time has come, this industry has to move towards the growers and ask them that, look here, I'm looking forward to a wood of A, B, C and characteristics. Grow it for me, I'm here to buy. So you will have to give kind of assurance to the growers. When I say growers in agroforestry, largely it is the farmers. How the panel industry, how the paper industry today, we talk about ITC in Andhra, in southern parts of the country, talk about JK in western India, Gujarat and that part, they are growing with assurance to the farmers that once you grow, we will be buying your wood for the X amount. Our panel industry in terms of wood requirement has totally revolutionized itself in North Indian sector of Yamunanagar. And therefore I feel this sector has to come out of the cocoon and has to have its own say in terms of the raw material. I think that is more important. Be it Melia dubia, be it X species, be it Y species, I feel they are separate things. The main focus today is, sir, get the quality wood, and quality wood is in your hands. You will have to come out of the table and then look at those growers, promote them, motivate them, they will grow for it. They will grow it for you. Thank you.
So, thank you. Sir, one question. Bamboo.
Yeah.
We are telling the farmers to grow and we are buying back. And we have done that in our Agarbatti manufacturers cooperative society. We are telling all the farmers in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and even Northeast also we are doing this, already we are doing. It is going on. In 3 years bamboo will come give yield, and then after 3 years also again it will grow as it is. And we have all arrangement with the farmers now.
So I feel
we will stop importing from China shortly in about 2 or 3 years.
So Dr. Ramesh is very right. When we have live examples available with us, only thing is that you will have to replicate this example of bamboo X, Y or Z into timber products. Yeah.
I just would like to add one more example. After 1988 forest policy, suddenly forest department started, it ceased to supply any timber to wood-based industry, and a lot of wood-based industries, especially panel industry, they stopped. They went out of function. So the reason was there was no wood from where they can start their work. So they started looking for optional raw material, and they found that the grown poplar is in the field, and that poplar was basically grown by Wimco for matchbox industry, matchwood,
yes,
right? Matchwood splinters, right? So earlier days, the panel industry used to make panels out of good quality of wood. They found, yes. They found that poplar is standing for matchwood industry. Now they started trials, they started R&D work, and they came out with some solution. And if any of you might have visited Yamunanagar region, you will find a success story. That success story, more than 300 wood-based panel industry are thriving just on poplar. Just on poplar, and seconded by eucalyptus, and all these trees are grown in the farms by farmers, just based on demand and supply dynamics.
This Camellia dubia after 10 years, after getting the yield, again, if the cut tree will grow or
it copies and it copies very profusely. So I feel second and third retooling can be harvested. Then what you were asking something?
So I want to know that from where we get the nursery of Pilias Ugi.
Okay.
And this is the second one is from where we get the wood of Pilias Ugi for our products. Or it is season or unseason?
Yeah. So far, this nursery is concerned, as I said, I would prefer whole of the country grows release varieties. The time has gone to use unimproved genetic materials, and these materials, either you get from the FRI, or FRI has licensed out these materials to 3, nurseries in North India so far. One is in Haldwani, that is Bemco Seedlings. One in Saharanpur, which is Bijani Seedlings Limited, and one is in Punjab, that is Golden Farms and Nurseries. So whether you get it from FRI or you get from either of these nurseries, it would be as good a material as it can be. Second question I feel is a very, very important one, where the wood is available. If this industry is ready, I feel they can conduct the trials. We would be in a position to provide sufficient amount of wood for conducting the trials. This organization by itself has done, and as he said, there are products on display in which section?
Hall number 15.
Okay, hall number 15. So I feel these are few products, but if industry further looks forward to it, wants to test them, they can have limited amount of wood available from us, of course on payment basis, because we have promoted certain farmers to grow it, so we can request them to supply it to you, and once that happens, I feel there's one organization which has got bulk of plants available now. About 5 lakh plants are available with IFFTC. It is an organization which is IFCO subsidiary, the urea company. It has its units in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Odisha, and so on and so forth. So the wood over a period of time can be made available. But I feel the larger than that is, these industries should come and support the farmers to grow it, with an assurance that we will buy it. That is much more important than available one. See, we have been working on this, as Dr. Nidhi said, we were getting this wood of mango, whether grown outside forest or inside forest, we were getting it. But suddenly it has come to a halt. It is not available anymore. So let us, just think about, let's be futuristic in our approach. And if we can have, a sustainable system, whereby both inputs and outputs are managed by you, I think that would work a lot. But there is a high degree of potential available with this species. It's up to you, my dear friends, to promote it. Thank you.
I had a question for Dr. Nidhi. Is bamboo covered under the WIC scheme, especially now that it has now been classified as a grass instead of a tree under the National Bamboo Mission? Why I'm asking it is because we are working, as the senior scientist said, that to think of it in a value chain concept. So we are working with around 10,000 farmers and artisans to create a value chain in Maharashtra on bamboo. So my questions were twofold. One, whether bamboo is covered under the WIC scheme, and second, in your presentations I saw that under the list of timbers which are useful for handicrafts, bamboo was not included. I was just curious to understand why bamboo is not included.
It is not required because it doesn't come under bricks. Bamboo is grown anywhere and everywhere, and also private cultivation can be made easily, and it can be harvested. In just 3 years you will get a yield. So that is not required. And plenty of bamboo is available in the forests, private forests and farmlands also. And it depends on the species, which species you need, or what kind of work, what kind of art. So it depends on that. Now we'll see, for example, I tell you, the agarbatti industry needs only one variety called tulda. Other varieties also useful, but it is takes lot of more time. So tulda is growing just in 3 years and giving yield. So we are concentrating on particular variety. Like that, for you also, whatever species is particularly required, so that has to be studied.
No, we have done the
Okay,
studies.
let me clarify first of all. RICS chain of custody certification is not dependent on any tree species. That certificate is applicable for any wood species. I gave those 3 examples because 95%, Dipesh, am I correct? More than 95% of the handicraft items which are exported, and the manufacturers who are using handicraft, who are making handicraft items, are using these 3 species. And I would make it very clear, if I'm sorry if that created a confusion. Chain of custody certification doesn't endorse or it doesn't mention any wood tree species. All the species are included in chain of custody certification.
Actually, it's the importers, means or the companies, bigger brands like IKEA, Walmart,
Right.
Target. So they demand a chain of custody certification, which is why it is important for us to get that done even for bamboo.
For which I would specifically say that is true for international certification schemes, that big brands, as I mentioned in my last 2 slides, they demand chain of custody certificate, and then most of the Indian manufacturers seek those certification. But in case of RICS, it is self-driven because to combat the UTR and Lacey Act, RICS is solely a legal certification, legality-related certification, which is very important for any buyer, based in Europe or US, to ensure that the wood species from this particular country is coming through a legal harvested source.
And is EPCH the nodal agency for that certification?
For RICS, yes.
Or you have sub
RICS, EPCH is the owner of RICS certification standard.
No, do SGS, TUB agencies like
So
them also? give them?
EPCH is the owner of the certification standard, whereas GICIA is the sole certification body for RICS. No other certification agency provides RICS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like I know, like heard about the Lenzing, the companies from Australia. They cultivate tree for making the viscose. The final product is viscose. So it's like that. Your product, our tree, which is now promoting it, is it reserved copyright for India, or it just can grow anywhere? I mean, like, it's a very important thing. I just want to know.
I can tell you one thing without any hesitation. World over, there is no tree which has got a copyright. No biological material has got a copyright. So it's a growing condition of a tree. It might grow in that condition or might not grow, because this is a biological material. So if it interacts with the environment, performance of a tree depends on 2 very important factors: what is inbuilt, that is genetics, and the environment in which it is grown. And I can tell you to an extent that it is 10% of the performance, 10% of the total existence is due to genetics, and 90% owns to the environment. So that question of copyright is not existing at all. Second question, it's an Indian native, but if other countries wish to grow it, it can be taken. There are certain rules Government of India has set in. Passing through those rules, the material can be imported, either the seeds or the plants, and it can be grown. Like for example, if I can use an example of eucalyptus, which is today backbone to wood-based industry, and of course the poplar, the casuarina. None of them grew in India originally. Casuarina, for example, has come from Australia. So is in the case of eucalyptus. The poplar has come from US. So media can be taken anywhere.
But you understood it that like cotton, you have European cotton and Egyptian cotton.
Yes.
So we buy from them.
Yeah.
We have to pay for them, and they need CRS and all these things. So in that way, why India should not have the copyright and their standard? Those cannot buy from us. They can buy the finished product. Like Lenzing is the fiber. If I am asking, we can grow it here. They can claim it. You cannot grow here. Although we have the condition where in the Himalaya side and all this. So it's very important for us to
I think
we have very
that-
beautiful product. So it's also very important to preserve it.
Yeah, I feel your question is very valid, but the right term for that is not the copyright. It is a biological diversity. That biological diversity is existing, and if they take it from us, we have the ownership.
Yes.
We have the ownership of that. So therefore, I said that there are certain regulations set by Government of India in consonance with state governments. So there is a National Biodiversity Board with its headquarters in Chennai, and every state has got its own biodiversity boards with headquarters anywhere within the state. So they will have an ownership with that. Say for example, this material is taken from India to X country. I will not name it. So the control over the material would be that of India. X country would grow it in consultations or consonance with India. So that is I don't want to go into that. This is a Geneva Convention of exchange of materials. So it comes in that treaty. So there is a treaty. In that treaty, this is covered, but it doesn't come in copyright. Copyright is something else. A book can be can have a copyright. My pen can have a copyright. But not a biology.
Actually, I was because it's really good for our Indian market, and if we have something safe for us, only India can supply make the handicraft item from this material. So like everybody feels safe. Okay, we can grow it and we can manufacture it from this wood. Only India can have this wood, and all the handicraft items can be made from this country. I have to buy from India.
There is a term called UPOV, UPOV, Union for Protection of Varieties. Under that is it considered, and there is a term called sui generis. Sui means my own. This is my own. So it covers covered under that. I will not go too much of scientific on it, which is a subject of my interest. But only thing is that it's not copyright. We come under UPOV, and we have a sui generis system, which is called this is our own. For example, if for the larger understanding, if I can use the word champagne, all of us enjoy champagne. I don't know, I enjoy it. So champagne, though we have it over here, but it is not produced over here. The fermentation does not take place. It takes place somewhere in Switzerland. So though I might have over here, but always that the moment I said champagne, it goes to that particular country. So this is sui generis system. Sui generis, SUIGENRIS. Sui generis system. Yeah, thank you.
I request our COA member, Shri K. Rameshji, to kindly do the honors. Dr. Ashok Kumar, a memento for you on behalf of ABCH. Dr. Neeti Verma. And Dr. Shailendra Kumar. So thank you so much for joining for the seminar, and thank you for the valuable inputs to the panel. Thank you so much.